Welcome in, everybody, to the Bare Knuckle Recovery podcast. This is episode 23. As always, I'm Tommy Streeter. This is Nate Mollering. As you guys can see, we've got two guests today. You all know Bob. We bring Bob back as often as we can. He's definitely a crowd favorite. And then we've got Ciara Bowling with us today. So anyone who follows us on any of our pages, you've probably seen pictures of Ciara at least. We got a message a couple weeks ago asking us to have a successful woman who's in long-term recovery on the podcast. And we've also had conversations with Ciara for a while about coming on the podcast, but she kept putting us off because she hates the podcast and didn't want to be a guest on it. But since she works for us, we told her that she had to. So we got Ciara here today. Basically, she's just going to share her story and tell us a little bit about her past, what she does now, why she got involved in this field, and we'll see where the conversation goes. And Bob is here for moral support.
Bob's always good for a good conversation, so.
Thanks for being here, Bob.
No problem.
Thanks for having me, guys. I don't hate the podcast, but
it seems like you hate it a little bit. But
I will tell you, in my story, I have a lot of insecurity. So I think that it just stems from that. Whenever I feel uncomfortable or, like Bob said, like out of my element.
Well, the best way to get over that is to just face it head on.
Yep, perseverance. You got it. That's what you're doing. She's overcoming her fears in real time, everyone. Bear witness.
Yeah, my heart's beating so fast. No, so I guess just get started like from the beginning. So I grew up in Mentone, Indiana. So it's a small little itty bitty town.
Everyone knows where Mentone is, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. You can look it up. It's got a big old egg. But it was just me, my mom, and my dad. And so I grew up in a pretty violent household. And that probably stems from a lot of the insecurity too, and just powerlessness. And being an only child, I didn't really understand that not everybody's dad was really mean and everybody's mom was really nice. I thought that it was always like that. And so like the way that my childhood was, I guess, was it kind of played into how I interacted with other people. And like one of my first memories is my mom's holding me and my dad has us like pinned down against the couch and he's choking my mom. And like, that's my very first memory. And so it was just, I was never safe. And I go to school and I see all these kids and I'm like, oh my gosh, like these kids are cool. I want them to like me. I want them to want to be my friend. And I was really chatty and I was really loud and just like all over the place. So I think that I was a lot for a lot of people really fast. And I was always told that I was talking too much or I was laughing too loud. But I think that laughing too loud, Tommy, yeah, he comments on that quite a bit. But
it's so loud.
But I didn't realize that school wasn't a safe place for everybody. Like that was my safe place. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that everybody else wasn't really, really happy to be at school because they weren't getting hit at school. And I didn't know that that wasn't happening to everybody else. So I always kind of felt like I had a hard time understanding that other people didn't have this like manuscript on how to do life and everything. I was really clingy towards my friends and they tolerated me. I think that it was either perceived or like maybe it was true, but definitely people thought that I was annoying. And I just wanted to have friends so bad. So I tried to cope and pick up coping mechanisms, I guess, along the way. And I developed an eating disorder when I was 11, a pretty gnarly eating disorder. And that was my first attempt at like trying to grasp onto something that could control, like my external environment was so crazy that I wanted to be able to control something.
Yeah, it's common.
Yeah. So like think of it kind of like with self-harm. I eventually ended up self-harming too. And I tell people, I explain it like my emotions are really big. Like I feel them all over my body. So like if my stomach is empty, then I know that it hurts right there. And like that is more tangible for me to grasp onto than it is for me to feel this emotion all over my whole body. Like I don't know where that's at. And
okay, so it would centralizing the pain helped you deal with pain you felt throughout your body? Like, because I mean,
like emotional pain's so big.
I was gonna say,
and you don't have like a spot. I can't like show you. Yeah, okay. Like some people say, like, okay, I got a lump in my throat, my chest, like, oh, my heart feels like it hurts, or my stomach's upset, whatever it is. I needed to have something tangible. So like with self-harm, it's the same thing. Like if there's like a spot right here, I know it hurts right here. Like that's more tangible for me than having this pain all over my body. So
it's good insight.
Yeah, it took me a while to figure that out. But so then going into like eating disorder, self-harm, whatever, like that stuff works until it doesn't.
Right.
Like eventually I got hungry and like self-harm hurts. So it wasn't sustainable. And a lot of the coping things that I picked up along the way, they worked until they didn't. So when I got a little bit older, then I started noticing boys that were way too old to be around. And I was put into situations where like I felt powerless, right? And so I guess this is like where my story starts to get a little bit darker. And I just want to like preface with like, yeah, okay, so there's trauma like throughout my story, and is what it is, but that's not the reason that I'm an alcoholic or an addict or anything. Like I like the effect produced by drugs and alcohol. Mm-hmm. That's essentially why I'm an alcoholic. But the trauma gave me the ability to validate for a reason that I was trying to escape all the time. So it made me feel like I deserve this.
Yeah.
So right around the same time that I'm like attempting that eating disorder, I'd like dabbled in drinking a little bit. We would steal it from our friends, like parents or whatever else it was. But when I started meeting these older boys, then I had more access to alcohol. And I got into this relationship with this guy, and he was way too old for me. And I was like 14, he was 18. And he put me in a situation where I felt very powerless, and I got pregnant. And then I had an abortion on my 15th birthday. And I debated on like whether or not I wanted to like share that part, but I feel like I sometimes like want to almost like protect other people, I guess, like in a way.
Sure.
And not like have to, but like that's a reality of something that happened. And I think that happens to a lot of kids. And the thing is that like, even though my dad was the way he was, I needed him to protect me, and he just like wasn't around. Like he didn't know about any of that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And my mom's like trying to cope the best she can. She's such a saint. My mom is like a very beautiful, timid lady, and she did the best she could, but she didn't know what to do with me. And like after that experience, I just kind of like lost my mind. Like I became a liar. I was just living two separate lives, and I felt like I was dirty, and just that was it. So he was the type of guy that was extremely abusive, and just like how my dad was, like this guy was like break my phone or choke me or something. Like it was just not a good situation for me to be in. But something that I'd learned was that the more that we would fight, the more alcohol I would get. And so we fought every day, so I drank every day. And I drank my entire way through my freshman year. And because I had this personality where I'm like loud and bubbly and everything all the time, I don't think people noticed that I was like drunk.
Yeah.
They just thought like, that's just Ciara. She's just like that. Mm-hmm. She's too much. We don't know what to do with her. That's just how she is. And I don't know that people really noticed that anything was severely going on at that point. 2 weeks into my sophomore year, I get expelled. By this point in time, but after all of that happened, I was drinking and abusing pain pills pretty much every day, as often as I could. It was summertime. And so when I get expelled for marijuana and Vicodin. And I remember talking to the assistant principal, and I was just like, you guys are really overreacting. Like everybody does this. I've figured it out. I know that all adults are in pain. I have figured that out now. And we all have something that we use to escape, and that's just what everybody's doing. And like, you guys are really overreacting, and I don't think that you really want to take away my only coping skill that I have now.
Right.
Yeah. So that's not true. Not everybody is snorting Vicodin.
Well, but we know now that opiates work better on mental and emotional pain than does physical pain. It was designed for physical pain, but that's why people get addicted to it, right? Because like you said, emotional and mental pain is far worse. and you feel it much deeper than if you break your leg. Breaking your leg sucks, but you know it's going to go away. You know what I mean? Like, you can't do anything to take away emotional pain other than take something like an opiate, you know? And so people get addicted to that feeling of the relief that it provides. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think that just being always told that I was overreacting to everything. When I was on opiates, I was calm. And I had a friend tell me one time, like, eventually my story leads to heroin, but I was real strung out on heroin at this point. And she looked over at me and she goes, "Man, I'm just so proud of you." And I was like, "For what?" And she was like, "You finally learned how to get your emotions under control." And I was just like, "Bro, I'm dying right now. What do you mean?" But I internalized that. I was just like, people like me better when I'm just like half here. Like when it's just heart and lungs working, that's when people like me. And that was hard. I always had this insecurity of I wanted people to like me so bad. I just wanted to have friends. But that isolated me a lot getting expelled from school. So at that same time, I'd started dating a guy who is now my daughter's father. And, you know, he was going through his own stuff. And I will say that I think we've had the conversation before about, like, is it harder to be an addict or to love an addict? And the hardest thing that I've been through in my trials in life is trying to love somebody while they're suffering. It's so hard. It's when you're getting high, like you're kind of numbed out, you know, like you don't really know a lot of the stuff that's going on. But when you are watching somebody every single day struggle and you can't fix it, that's hard. So I eventually get pregnant with my daughter when I was 16, and I was alone through that pregnancy, so that was hard. But there was a lot of things going on, right? So like I have this eating disorder, so now my body is like all out of whack, and I'm alone. Like I don't have my best friend with me to go through this with. My parents had finally gotten divorced at that point, so I'm moving out of my childhood home. I can't go to school anymore. I was a hard pregnancy, so I was put on bed rest at like 5 months. There was just a lot. Like I just felt very alone, like I had nobody. But on top of everything, I am a raging drug addict, and I can't use drugs while I'm pregnant. So I had nothing to cope with. As soon as I had my daughter, my eating disorder kicked back on. But I had my daughter 4 days before my 17th birthday. And, you know, that's just not what you're supposed to be doing at that age. You know, I remember like looking at her and she was so perfect. And I was afraid of her. I thought that she was going to fix everything. I thought she was going to fix me and her dad. And that's just not the reality. It made things a lot harder. And I felt so responsible for this little person. But, you know, that addiction, once it gets its claws in you, there's not a lot that you can do to try to overcome it. I started drinking pretty much as soon as I had her, and postpartum depression took off. And I ended up back on probation with another DUI, and I would have multiple DUIs throughout all of this, like while I was a juvenile. I barely graduated high school. And then around the time that I was 18, I had tried heroin. I used for like a week, and then, I don't know, got kind of afraid of like the people that I was hanging around because they were kind of scary. It was actually people that Tommy knows.
I was going to say, it was probably a bunch of my friends.
It was probably Tommy.
Yeah, but
It
they were
wasn't
just
me.
Scary.
But look,
Still scary.
I just thought I was a party girl, okay? Like, that's what I wanted to be. That's what I thought that I was. And so I was hanging around these people that were, like, mean. They were, like, mean to me. They were kind of like...
Probably. Tommy's still mean to you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not true.
But that just wasn't my scene. I didn't want to be around those people. And I liked heroin quite a bit. But pain pills were kind of still around a little bit. So I was okay.
Heroin's not really like a party scene thing. No.
It was a
I used
party
to
for
think
me.
it was.
Yeah,
It wasn't
I feel
for
like
me at all.
okay.
So I thought it was cool that I did heroin and other people didn't. So I would like tell
Yes.
people about it, and they did not think it was cool. But like I thought it was cool.
That was
I just was like, you're a p***y dude.
I'm talking like, so one of the things that I always think about, like when you're telling your stories, when you told me the story about when you saw that like poster or something in a magazine, and it was like these women that were hanging out by a pool, like drinking or something like that.
It was on MySpace.
Okay, on
To
MySpace.
age myself.
And you just like, you thought like, that's what I want to do. Like they look like they're having fun and they're drinking, so that's what I need. Like that's what I think of when I'm thinking of like a party thing. But heroin is not that at all for me. Like,
Okay,
Just
yeah.
lay by the pool and do heroin.
The name
Oh,
heroin
wow.
sounds bad.
Yeah, like
It actually, you know,
for me, heroin is sleeping on a
hero
park
in
bench,
German.
starving. Like that's not a party.
The
It was terrible.
yeah. I mean, for a while, there were good times for a while. When I
Yeah,
first
it used to
started doing
give me a
heroin.
lot of energy.
By
That
the
was
time
the
I was
thing.
doing heroin, like it was.
I started
not
doing heroin before I was
partying
fully
anymore.
hooked. Like, I mean, I
did
was hooked
not at
emotionally,
all.
mentally, but
But like I thought that heroin was just a stronger pain pill, and
It-
I always
yeah.
drank and did pain pills together. So I
Right.
never thought anything really of it.
yeah, it's
And-
just street oxy, basically.
But you know what happened actually to kind of add on to that is that I got a DUI when I was finally an adult, and I actually went to jail. And I was like, oh, that's
Jail's
not
not
for me.
fun. It's not
I don't
fun.
want to do that. So I was on my way to a party.
Bob thought the opposite the first time he got arrested. He was like,
Yeah.
"This is
It's
cool."
like, this
I'm
is
like, "I
what
can
is
do
going
this."
on.
I can do this. He said, I got 3 meals.
Yeah.
This place is sleep and
No,
spades.
I did not. There was like crickets jumping around in there and stuff.
Oh, I've
Those are
been in there
probably
with
It
rats.
was
Cockroaches.
worse than crickets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen rats come out of the toilet.
Why would you want that?
I mean, it's not like you just, well, you kind of sign up for it, I guess.
Yeah.
No, okay, well, it's not
People
for me.
get
It was
used
not for
to
me.
it, man. They get used to it.
I was used to always getting away with everything, I think, still.
Well, for some people too, you have to imagine that going to jail is not worse than the situation they're in. They're out of jail sometimes.
Mm.
Like I know people that told me that it's at least in jail, like it was cleaner than where I used to live,
You don't have to
You know
be
what I mean?
responsible in jail.
and it was predictable. Like you could predict what was going to happen.
Yeah,
You
you,
know what I
don't
mean?
have to be responsible in jail.
Right.
Most of the time, when an addict is strung out on heroin, crack, whatever it may be, they are completely irresponsible.
Yeah.
When they're in society,
Mhm.
everybody can point that out, especially family members that
Right.
don't get high. They're like, oh my gosh, you haven't taken a bath today, or you don't have a car no more.
You don't get up till 1 p.m.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you're in jail or prison, everybody in there
Yeah.
is in the same situation. So nobody is pointing a finger.
Right.
You know what I mean? So when you're in there, you don't have to get up at a certain time. All you have to do is make it to the line and get your tray at
Right.
a certain time. That's it. But you can bowl it up and eat it later. But you don't have to do anything. You can lay around.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You don't have to be responsible.
You don't have to be at work.
No, you don't have to be at work. You don't do none of that.
I mean, some people that's what they like to do: lay around. They get fed. They fight when they want to.
And that
Take a nap.
seems to happen a lot of times
Yeah.
when you get people that are strung out and they're
Yeah,
homeless.
right. Right.
They didn't always start out that way. Now some people did, but not always. And then once they start losing this, losing that, and now they're a disappointment to their family, to themselves, the jobs won't hire them no more. They start being homeless and they're okay with it. They'll go pitch a tent and sleep
Yeah.
outside
Yeah.
because they don't have to be responsible.
There are people that, when this is obviously we're getting off topic, but there are people that are addicted to being homeless. I have seen
100%.
interviews with people that say, "Bro, I love it. Like, I get to
I'll
hang out, do
I'll
what I
have to
want.
do-
Like,
Nothing.
I'll
Yeah.
go smoke meth today, and I get to have sex with this girl, and then I dip out. You know what I mean? Like,
Go to the local church, eat dinner,
Yep.
eat breakfast.
yep,
You know what I mean? And they don't have to do it. They don't have to pay rent. So the $20-$30 they hustle up, they can put in their arm.
yep.
I don't think I ever thought those things were going to happen to me, though.
No
like
one ever
homelessness
does.
is like is part of my story, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think that I was headed to that. Like I grew up never wanting for anything.
Right? You thought you were better than that. I mean, I did too.
Absolutely, and I remember
Even when I was homeless, I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not like these people.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I remember at one
Oh
point.
wait, I am.
No, exactly. I was
Yeah.
those people. Like
Yeah.
people didn't look me in the eye. People would like
Yeah.
follow me around the
Mhm.
store because they were scared I was going to steal something. And I'm
Yeah.
like, me? No, absolutely
But you
not.
definitely did.
But I remember watching people like throw their food away at McDonald's, like wanting to like eat people's leftover food. And I would
Yeah.
like wait to make sure it was like a clean looking person because I wasn't just going to eat anybody's leftover
Right.
food. Like, you know,
Especially
I had
another homeless
standards.
person's.
Yeah. Yeah. So it does get bad. But I went
Yeah.
to jail and it wasn't for me, right? Because I just wasn't there yet. And
It's not too late.
when I got arrested,
Uh-huh.
there was a bottle of pain pills in my car. I was actually doing pain pills that night. And they belonged to somebody that was like in the car. So
Sure.
they threw them back into the car. They like left that bottle in there. And when I got back out, I remember thinking to myself, if I would have just been on something that I could have kept in my pocket instead of being drunk,
Yeah.
then this would have never happened to me.
Right.
Right? Because it was the alcohol's fault. It wasn't my fault. Like I just got unlucky that night. And I was on my way to a party and had alcohol in the back of the car and told myself, like, I cannot keep drinking like this. It is just not sustainable.
Right.
If I had something that I could keep in my pocket and I didn't have to share it with everybody, but I could be just as loaded as everybody else, then I would be fine. And that is the moment that I made the decision that I was going to go back to using heroin because pain pills weren't readily available anymore. And it was like that clear, sober mind, like made the choice that. And I walked up to some people and asked them that night. I was like, do you guys know where I can get heroin? And they were like, you can't just ask people that, Ciara. I was like, well, I did. They were like, yeah, but I mean, can you imagine me just like coming up to you and just being like, hey?
Yes.
But I was just so naive, like getting into a world that I had no idea about. But I felt brave, you know? It gave me something to where I didn't feel so powerless. I had felt powerless for so long, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So my heroin addiction took off and
How old were you now at that point?
19.
Okay.
I was 18 when I first tried heroin. I was 19, yep. But you got to remember, I'm on probation, right? From that DUI.
Sure.
And so eventually, about a year later, my probation officer called me and was like, hey, I know you're on like informal probation, but I need you to come in and see me. Now, she hasn't seen me since before I ever started doing all this crazy stuff, right? So I knew she was going to drug test me, and I walked in there with fake pee in my pants, and I'm ready to go. And she's like, we're going to drug test you. She looked at me, and she was like, and I was like, hey, hi. My hair all crazy. I haven't brushed my hair, like sores all over my face. It was bad. And she was like, we're going to drug test you. And I was like, okay, yeah, no problem. And she walks in with a mouth swab. And I was like,
your fake pee's not going to help you
Yeah,
with
that
that.
ain't gonna help.
all right. And I started crying. And obviously.
Give it away.
Yeah.
You should have at least let the test play out.
No, I just like saw it and just started bawling.
I always would deny until the last possible minute. Like, and it would be fake. It would hit this line. I'd be like, all right.
You sure that's good?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I should be clean.
That wasn't sealed when I opened it.
I wasn't a very good drug addict, obviously.
I mean,
right?
you're a pretty good drug addict. You just weren't a very good liar, it sounds like.
No, I just,
Yeah.
every single day I wanted to cry. I hated what I was doing.
Well, yeah.
I absolutely hated it. And so she told me, and she was like, what are you going to pop for? I was like, everything. And she was like, okay, you have an option. Like, I'm not going to violate you. You can go to treatment. And that started my journey of going to rehabs. So I stayed in and out of rehabs for a while, a bunch. I would go to California, come back, go to Florida, come back, go back to California, come back. And
Did you ever get body brokered?
no,
Like paid to go to treatment? No.
I did not. But
How'd you
I
miss
was,
out on that? No, I'm just kidding.
Because I was lucky, honestly.
I'm just
because if they would have found me, I would be dead. The
Right.
last time that I actually used heroin was heroin from a body broker, but I
bet,
knew what
yeah.
he was doing.
Sure.
What was his
So-
name? Let's put him on blast.
Yeah.
Josh something. I don't know. He was real goofy looking, had like a jack jaw.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But he's probably dead now, to be honest with you.
Probably.
Yeah. Most of those guys are. And
Shockingly.
so yeah, no, I was what they called an organic client. So I just came from just because I called in and wanted to come to treatment. I wasn't body brokered in anything. And but I did start hearing about it, and I'm just glad that I never got caught up in that, because I would definitely
Yeah.
be dead. When
Real quick, before people,
yeah.
for people who don't know body brokering is, we should probably call them real quick. It's when a treatment center, a marketer from a treatment center pays someone to go to treatment. And oftentimes in the process of paying them, they also supply them with drugs so they can meet criteria. That's what it is. It's very illegal. It's actually human trafficking.
100%.
Yeah, it's human trafficking.
Yeah.
So we were making a joke. It's really not funny, and we're highly against it.
That's why I said let's put them on blast.
Yeah, but it does
wasn't
happen. It's less common because a lot of them they cracked down pretty hard on it, but it still does happen. So if someone offers to pay you to go to rehab, don't go.
No, they would
All
buy.
bad.
I remember them like trying to buy insurance for people. So I was
Right.
exposed to a lot of that stuff while I was out there. And actually,
Sure.
a lot of my story does have to do with body brokering, but I'll get into that later.
Mhm.
But with being exposed to a lot of that different stuff, I saw an evil side of what recovery
Right.
could look like for people. That people like claim to be in recovery, but they're really not. And I didn't want any
Right.
part of that.
Yeah. There's bad people in every industry, every field. People, the police get a bad rap, but, percentage wise, there's bad doctors, there's bad counselors, there's bad garbage men. You pick a profession. Oh, that's true. I mean, there's bad people that do all kinds of stuff. And a lot of people think that if someone works in the treatment industry or in the recovery field, that means they have a good heart and they want to help people. But the one thing is you always have to remember that sick people attract sick people. So there's some people that see a vulnerable person and they want to take advantage of it for personal gain, whether it's greed because they want to make money or whether it's sexual, whatever it is. But you do have to protect yourself at all times. And that's why part of the reason we started Bare Knuckle Recovery and what we do so we can help people stay away from individuals who want to take advantage of those people that are vulnerable.
Absolutely. I was definitely very vulnerable at that time. I would only do I would do the 1, 2, 3 shuffle. Like I would go into a treatment center, like work steps 1, 2, and 3, and then come back home. And what my addiction picked right off, where I'd left it. And I was just
How long would it
so
last
much
when you
worse.
would come back home? Because would you go back to your mom's house?
Mm-hmm.
So that was a place you were getting high before,
My
right?
poor mom.
So
yeah.
you come back to your mom's house, and how long would you stay sober? What was the longest that you ever stayed sober after doing that?
2 days.
Did your mom make a good sober living manager?
Yeah, absolutely. She was the best. No, that was one thing that I want to argue with everyone. Like any mom that ever wonders, being a mom is enough. Like you don't need to
it's
be
not
their
their job.
probation officer. You
Yep.
don't need to be their sober living manager. You don't need to be their best friend or anything
And you
like
can't
that.
be. You
No.
can't be their sober living. You can't be their therapist. You can't be their sponsor. Those aren't meant to have dual relationships. You know what I mean? It puts too much strain. It's gonna create resentment and pain for everybody.
So the last time that I tried to go back to treatment, so I came home. I would white knuckle it through every single rehab.
And what does white knuckle it mean?
I mean, I was miserable.
So you weren't working a program, right?
At all.
You just were trying to stay sober for the sake of staying sober. And
Yeah.
that didn't work for you, right?
I remember I would journal and I would scribble in there. I'd be like, why doesn't it just click? Like everybody else seems like they're comfortable in their skin. Everybody else can sit through these groups and they can participate. And I felt like I was going to crawl out of my skin.
Were you looking for an outside solution to an internal problem? Is that what you were doing?
Absolutely.
Well, it's like the same
only
feeling
thing
you had when you were younger, when you started going to school. And you kind of,
yeah.
it was different, but it ultimately is the same feeling.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I knew how to do was
Yeah.
look for outside things.
'Cause
And
you thought drugs were your problem.
yeah, they were not. Problem was me the
There
whole
you go.
time. And I noticed that when I would get sober, I would get really angry.
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell the staff all the time, look, man, if you felt the way that I felt, you would just let me get high. That is how bad I know that if you could feel what I'm feeling right now, you would just let me because it's that bad.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, I've been there. And they would say something silly like, I have a life beyond my wildest dreams now. I don't need to do that. And I was just like,
You're like,
screw
BS.
you. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So
Congratulations on your recovery.
Yeah.
I came home for my 21st birthday and to celebrate my daughter's birthday. Do I want to tell that part? I will.
Go for
This
it.
is how gnarly it got.
It's real.
My daughter was in preschool. I'm gonna cry.
That's okay.
Nate cries all the time.
I do
It's
cry a
okay.
lot. I'm like Dick Bogus over here. I'm bald and I cry and I'm old. I'm just a little bigger than him.
It's just she was everything to me, right? And I just couldn't show up for her, man. And it was, she was in preschool and it was her birthday party and I'd brought in treats. I came home from rehab like literally like the night before. And I'd already started using. And I asked the teacher if I could use the restroom real fast. And I was going to get high. Like before we like served her goodies or whatever.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, it's just like right across the hall. And I went in there and was trying to shoot up and everybody came in to wash their hands for snack. So I just saw all of these little kids and I made eye contact with this little girl like through the like gap in the stall.
I was gonna say, were you not in the stall? Like you were just standing at the sink?
No, I was in, but like everybody just like I heard all these little feet like pitter patter in, and I was
kids are curious. They're looking in.
Yeah, like who's in there?
Right.
You know,
Heads popping underneath.
Surprise! It's me shooting up
with a needle.
Yeah.
On my arm. Oh, I'm so glad I'm with you guys so that I can laugh about that because that's heavy.
Well, it's real. It's heavy, and we laugh because like you're okay now, and I know you have a good relationship with your daughter. But it's important that you share that stuff. We're not making light of it to, like I said, make it a joke. But it's good that people hear this. You talk about it because there's a mom out there going through that right now, or a dad that's going through that, and they think they're a total piece of and that they don't deserve to have their kid, and that their kid's better off without them. And you're just living proof that that's not true. So continue.
The disease just makes you do wild things, man. Yep. And I've never felt lower about myself in that moment because I couldn't even show up for it. Like it was like an hour. Like I just needed to be there present for an hour.
Yeah.
So do that. Celebrate her birthday. And then it's my birthday. And I tell myself I am not going to get high. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to have a normal day. And that is not what happened at all.
But I bet if we hooked up to a lie detector, you would have passed, right? Because
absolutely.
You meant it with all your heart.
Yep.
Every time
Flying
you're
colors.
Like, all right, I'm going to show up for my kid. I'm going to stay sober. I'm going to dump out my booze. I'm going to throw in my needles. Tomorrow's a new day. Yep. I'm going to do it. And I always like to stop people and highlight that because so many families are like, oh, you said this before. You said this before. That person, and they'll convince you because they believe it.
They mean it.
They mean it in that moment,
meant it.
Right?
Absolutely. Every time I meant it.
But then you go on autopilot the next day. And I know for me, the whole time I was going to cop dope or get a bottle or whatever it was, I'd be thinking like, why am I doing this? But I couldn't stop myself. Couldn't do it.
Just like me sitting in that bathroom. Yep. Like, I'm like, what are you doing? I wasn't dope sick.
Right.
There was no need for that.
But 100 days in a row, I would get high and drunk and then be like, tomorrow's the day.
And even throw the stuff away.
That's what I'm saying. I throw all my needles away.
Get up in the morning time as soon as your eyes open.
Digging them out of the trash.
Digging in the trash can for them cottons.
Yeah, I mean, so go on. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No. So yeah, absolutely would have passed with flying colors knowing that I was not going to get loaded that day.
Yep.
And I had some plans to hang out with my best friend later that night. Maybe drink a little bit, but nothing crazy. And she told me, she goes, it's going to be like it used to be. Like where we're just kids and we're just going to have some fun.
And that's what everybody wants, right? That's what every addict.
To drink with impunity. Yeah. To drink like normal people.
I want to go back to when it was fun.
Yeah. And there was no consequences.
Right.
Yeah. And I had crossed that line, obviously. Somebody got a hold of me that night and said, hey, I heard it's your birthday and you're back from rehab. I have something for you. And it was just like game on. There was I didn't have like a second thought or anything. And I went to pick up this stuff and he told me like, hey, this is like really strong. Be careful. And I was like, they all say that, whatever, right. He goes, no, like this is different. Just like, be careful. I'm like, okay. And I remember like when I drew it up, it was clear.
Yeah.
So this was one of my first experiences with what we now know as fentanyl. And I woke up in an ambulance, like clawing at everybody and like ripping the IV out of me and the oxygen off me and all the things that were all over my chest and screaming like, what's going on? And they were like, do you know like where you are? Do you know what today is? And I'm like, it's my birthday. And this guy's like leaning over me and he's like, well, happy birthday. And I deserve that.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I overdosed on my 21st birthday. No plans to get high that day at all. And it's just like that. And I think that that's ends up being a lot of people's like last time that they use.
Mhm.
Like they don't think nobody like plans on that usually.
No.
At least you remember your 21st birthday. I don't.
Yeah, well,
I do.
yeah, it wasn't a good memory though. I woke up the next day and my mama came and picked me up, and she was standing in the kitchen. She had her back to me, and I remember she turned around and she looked at me and she said, "Ciara, you almost died last night." And I was like, whoa. Like, you are same thing as me being 15. Like when that assistant principal was telling me that everybody does not do this. I'm like, Mom, you are overreacting.
Yep.
I did not almost die. Like, I'm fine. Obviously, I'm fine. Look at me. I'm right here.
Yep.
And that was an excuse that like set me off to go back to using that day. Was I probably going to use that day anyways? Yeah. But I went back off.
But you believed it, right?
Huh?
You believed it. You were fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I thought that was something. I mean, I'd seen people overdose before. I had overdosed before. We'd usually just rub a little bit of Suboxone under our tongues or something, reverse it, and, you'd be fine. But I went on using for a little while after that. My mom finally became the bravest woman, became my hero, and got a restraining order against me. And when she did that, she saved my life. Absolutely. Yep. When they served me, I came home. I've been gone for a while. I came home and the police met me there and served me with this restraining order. And they were like, you need to leave. And my mom was like, figure out a way to an airport and you're going back to California. She's like, or wherever. I don't care. You just can't be here. I was like, okay. So I went back to California again and went back to the same treatment center again. And laying in the same detox bed with a staff that, like, if I could find her now, I have no idea where she is now, but unfortunately lost contact with her, but she absolutely saved my life. Every time that I would come back there, she had this reputation of being like mean, but every time I would come back there, she would just swallow me up in a big hug and tell me like, you're safe now, because every time that I came back to her, I looked a lot worse. Sure. I was way more beat up. And she would just tell me, like, you're safe now, like, it's okay. And I owe her so much for that. When I got back to treatment, I was trying to do everything right, trying to fill out all the paper, all the little packets that they give you, go to groups, do all the things. And I was like a rehab professional at this point. I've heard Tommy say that before. Like, I could pretty much do those groups myself. Mm-hmm. But there were people there. And I still am very insecure and I want people to like me. And when they said that they were going to get high, I was like, you can't leave me out of that. And I got high again. And, being faced with knowing that like I didn't want to get loaded anymore and I didn't have the choice. It's different like when you're dope sick, like when you go from like being fully sober minded and then you make that choice, like that is a choice at that point. And that's why I think a lot of like when we feel so sorry for like addicts that have died, and I do, like I'm sad that it happens. I'm sad people die from this disease, but man, once you have like some recovery in you and you've been shown a new way of life and you choose to go back to that, like I can't really feel that bad for you. Like,
right. And I always say to this, addiction is not a choice. We don't choose that. It's a disease disorder. You can argue it either way. It doesn't matter. It's a disease disorder. Pick your poison. But addiction is not a choice. Relapse, recovery, and continued use are choices, right?
Absolutely.
So even in active addiction, you have a choice, especially today in 2024. Whether you have Medicaid, no insurance, like another place just came out today. We saw an email say they take presumptive eligibility. We can get you signed up today to go to rehab, even if you don't have no insurance, right? Or you have insurance through your employer, or somebody can help you out. Like you have options, whether it's MAT, whether it's harm reduction, whether it's a rehab center, but continued use at this point, like you're choosing to do that, and relapse certainly is a choice. So it's the same thing. I always say, you get diabetes, you didn't choose to get it, especially type 1, right? And even type 2. So yeah, you may have ate like and it may have destroyed your pancreas, but you can't say, well, I'm going to eat like and I'm not going to let my body destroy my pancreas. Like that's not a choice. Your body does that internally. So you beat the crap out of your brain with substances long enough, you get essentially type 2 addiction or type 2 alcoholism, however the hell you want to say it. You didn't choose to become that person that can no longer control their use of substances. But you got to make a choice. Am I going to take my insulin? Am I going to keep eating sugar? Hopefully not, because if you do, you're going to get your leg cut off. You're going to lose both your legs. You're going to lose both your arms. You're going to die. It's the same thing with addiction, just like getting cancer. I didn't choose to get cancer, but I can pick if I'm going to take the therapy routes that are given to me by my doctor or not. That's the choice. So, because people oftentimes will die on the freaking hill, literally, of, I have a disease, I can't help it.
Yes, you can.
Oh, crap.
Yeah. You got a broken leg and you walk around, let it heal like that, and you don't go to the doctor. I can't feel bad for you. Absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely. So I made the choice to relapse again. And this treatment center was done with me. And I had the case manager that absolutely risked everything, and he risked his job, and he prayed with me. And you're not really supposed to do that, but he did anyways. He said, I don't care. And he prayed with me, and he prayed that and I didn't want to hurt his feelings. He was goofy. He was cool. And I was like, you can pray for me, man. That's cool. And he asked that the whatever clause like this addiction had in me would be loosened. And I really didn't want to hurt his feelings, but I went back to the house and I thought they were going to give me another chance, and they told me that they were kicking me out.
Oh.
And so now I'm like homeless, like in California homeless.
It got real, didn't it?
Yeah, real quick. And so I'm folding my clothes in the same suitcase I've been living out of for however many years. And that staff, that woman, her name's Sam. She came in and she said, have you thought about praying about any of this stuff? And I was like, I don't know, man. And she was like, I recommend that you do, because you're going to die out here. And I was already like down, folding my clothes, and I prayed, and I was like, man, I just don't want to I don't want to keep doing this. Like, I'm scared. And I don't know why, I got high again. I didn't even really want to. And I just wish that whatever thing inside of me is so insecure that I have to have people like me and I have to do this stuff, even though I don't want to live like this anymore. I just wish that would be removed from me. And I wish it would just click. She came back in a little bit later, I don't know. And I don't know what she did or what she said, but she told me that they were going to give me a second chance. And I was the first person up in the mornings. I was doing everybody else's chores. I was tried to be as good of a client as I could. And I was the worst client ever. I was still a worst client that time too. But I tried to be as good as I could. And
but you were living different on purpose, though.
I was trying.
Right? But okay, but that's what I want people to see, because a lot of people confuse the recovery part as I have to have the willingness and I have to want to do it. People wait to feel different. You probably didn't feel a lot different. You just started doing different.
Yeah.
And then you felt different, right? If you would have let your feelings control you, you never would have started to do.
Never get sober.
We
Not
had
at all.
stairs in that place, and they would tell me when I didn't feel right about something, whatever it was, they said, get smart feet, get your feet moving, walk up and down them stairs until you're tired, until that craving goes away. And that's what they would make me do. So I learned a lot in that treatment center and barely made it through that. But I stayed out in California for quite a while trying to get my life together. And I did. I got 2 jobs. I got me a little boyfriend and a little dog and an apartment. And I thought that life was perfect, And I dove headfirst into Alcoholics Anonymous and found a family out there that they are still the closest things to me. I absolutely love the family that I developed out there in California. I still talk about them all the time, and I go out and see them at least once a year. But, I said that loving an addict is way harder than being one. I was doing everything that I could in my recovery. And one of the things that always weighed on me was that I wasn't home with my daughter, right? And as much as I would try to not talk about it and just pretend like it didn't bother me, it bothered me a lot. And I wanted to go home, and I wanted to try to start mending that relationship. So I made a plan to go home for the summer. And while I was home, my boyfriend relapsed, and he died from a heroin overdose.
Sorry to hear that.
I was, me too, man. Actually, me too. I'm really sad that he made such a stupid choice.
Yeah.
Because it was so preventable.
It's awful. Senseless. senseless.
Absolutely. There was just no need for it, no reason for it, you know, and I kind of thought that was like beyond us. But one thing that I've learned is that I'm powerless over drugs and alcohol, whether I'm the one consuming them or not.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if it's me taking them or not. Like, I'm still going to always be powerless over them. So when he died, I moved back to Indiana. And I've been back here ever since, repairing that relationship with my daughter. And that was rough, obviously. But one thing that I learned from that is that anything can be taken from you in this lifetime. House, car, job, relationships, people die. But one thing that I will never lose is my sobriety date. Nobody can ever take that from me. And so I clung onto my sobriety. And a lot of people use that like as an excuse, like, oh, I went through something hard. That's like why I relapsed or whatever. But that was the only thing that couldn't be taken from me. I wasn't about to just give that up. So I was like 2 years sober when he died. And God willing, on June 14th, I will have 7 years.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's a long time. It's a long time. I think it's cool you talked about AA being an important part of your story. You know, I think in 2024, the 12 steps gets kind of crapped on a lot as being regressive and sometimes even oppressive. But I think a lot of people miss the boat on the 12 steps. I think you put it into words really well. It sounds like what you found was a community of people, and we know that the opposite of addiction is human connection. And that's really what AA is all about. That's why they say it's a we program, right? Because we all are in this together and we're going to fight together. But being a part of a group like that is part of being accountable. And that's what AA is all about, is taking personal responsibility to the point where you can be accountable to those around you. And that's what a human connection and a community is like.
And like that sufficient substitute that I was looking for, right? Like I needed, you can't just take drugs and alcohol away from somebody that's like used that as a coping mechanism and just be like, all right, figure out life now. I needed something.
Right.
So, you know, when you like walk into a party, I don't know if any of you guys were like partiers, but at one point I was still a party girl before I was slamming dope. But I'd walk into a party and people would be like, oh my gosh, Ciara's here. And I loved that. I loved that. And when I would walk into a room of Alcoholics Anonymous and I knew every person in there, and that was my home group, and they wanted to be in there with me and they were happy to see me, and they'd be like, oh, Ciara's here. That was my sufficient substitute. Like, those people loved me, and I could call any of them and actually have a conversation with them still to this day, versus those people that I was partying with. Like, I don't know where they're at. I couldn't call them if it wasn't the weekend, you know? Yeah.
They don't care about you. They don't care about themselves. That's why they don't care about you. You can't care about somebody else if you're not worried about what's going on with you.
Yeah, nobody like drinks vodka the way that we all used to drink and is like having a good time. You know, they're trying to kill something inside of themselves. And when we're all sad like that in a big group, it doesn't help anything. But we were all together for a common purpose, trying to stay sober. And those people are still as significant as ever in my life.
Well, that's the thing, is alcohol and drugs, it does kill the pain, but it also kills joy, kills love. You know what I mean? Like, it kills everything.
You don't get to cherry pick your emotions, right?
When you drop a nuke, it'll kill the enemy, but it'll kill the innocent people too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. You're nuking yourself, basically.
Absolutely. Like, I thought that I could cherry pick them. Like, I could be like, I just don't want to feel sad or feel angry or feel whatever. But you don't get to cherry pick. Like, it's all of your emotions. Like, you don't even get to feel happiness anymore.
Nope.
You're pretty much just numbed out.
That's it.
That's not cool.
No. You're not really living at that point. I mean, you're surviving barely, but it's not a life. You know what I mean? There's nothing to look forward to. You know, we talked a lot about the chaos of being an active addiction, and you're right, Bob. Like, it's unpredictable. I mean, the only thing you do, basically, you sleep till you wake up, and then you try to find means to flip into money to get dope.
And when you're homeless, you try to stay awake as long as you can.
Right.
Because you don't got nowhere to sleep at.
And you're defenseless.
Yeah.
You fall asleep, you can get your stuff taken.
When it's wintertime outside, it's horrible.
Yeah.
But it's just as bad when it's 100 degrees outside.
Yep.
And you're walking around, same clothes, same drawers, all that.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane, dude. You got a toothbrush in your back pocket that's done touched everything you sat on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so you don't even use it. Sometimes it's just there for the looks. You know what I mean? Like, that's horrible, man. Like, it's no way to live.
It's a humbling feeling to not even own a chair to sit on. Like, everything I had in the world at one point was because somebody gave it to me and allowed me to be in that space. Like, there was not an inch of real estate in the world that was mine. I didn't own anything except the clothes on my back. That's because somebody had bought them for me. I had earned absolutely nothing. And that was a scary feeling.
I woke up the other night, used the restroom, and I was walking through my house. And it was crazy because when I come out of the bathroom, it just hit me like this gratitude.
Yeah.
I'm looking around, I'm like, this is me. This is mine. You know what I mean? Like,
you earned it.
Yeah, like it's insane the way my life is turned around. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, I opened up my fridge.
Drink some milk.
You know what I'm saying? Straight out the jug. You know what I
God,
mean?
you guys are nasty.
But it was just like a moment of gratitude. I'm like, holy crap, man.
This
like,
milk is mine.
Yeah.
I bought this milk.
I mean, look,
Yeah.
I feel the same way about doing yard work. Like I'm out cutting my grass, edging it, making sure it's straight. You know what I mean? Out there pulling grass and weeds out of the flower beds. Like
Killing bees with a tennis racket.
killing bees with an electric tennis racket. Like, you know what I mean? But that stuff, like I never, ever imagined that would be something that I would ever care about. Like I would have thought that was super lame back in the day. I would have sold that damn mower and every tool I had to go get a shot of dope. You know what I mean? And now here I am trying to take care of my yard and be a good neighbor. Like thinking about other people is really what recovery allows us to do, which is something we never used to do because it's all about how I feel. And that's why we get high. And that's why we'll step on anybody to get high, steal anything. And I mean, just like you loved your daughter with all your heart, but that wasn't enough.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Not while it had a hold on you.
Who would have known when you get sober, you care about helping somebody else before your own self?
Constant thought of others.
That's insane. Like before, you would try to sell something to somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, you want this? Now, you'd be like, I don't want to afford. You can have it.
I've been packing up my house and just giving all kinds of stuff
I mean,
away.
but it's
He's
crazy.
giving away so much stuff. We had to do a Columbia assessment. He was going to kill himself.
Yeah,
you know?
like it's crazy because in
I
your
gave my
mind
shoe
you're
rack away.
like here, you know, I mean, you can have this, and you
we
really
really
try
thought you
to
were in
help
trouble.
people. And that's crazy because I
Yeah.
never thought. I always swore that I would overdose when my mom died. I never. I mean, I used to play it through in my mind, play it through all the time. Like, yep, this is what's gonna happen. She's gonna die. I'm gonna slam some dope. I'm gonna die too.
Yep.
And it didn't happen.
And you thought that because what? Because you were thinking about you.
Absolutely, because I
Me.
couldn't take care
Making
of myself.
somebody else's death about
Right.
you.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of, you know what I mean, really grieving my mom, you know, my best friend in the whole world, you know what I mean? But it didn't happen like that, you know? It didn't, and I couldn't be more grateful today that it didn't, you know what I mean? Like I when I'm riding to work sometimes, I tell myself like, thank you. I mean, thank you for letting me make it flat tire. Thank you for letting me have a flat tire because I got the money to fix it today.
And fix one for somebody else probably too.
I've stole neighbors' tires before. Just
Right.
to put on a car with no title, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right,
Try to South
right.
Bend.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I've done that, but today I got the money to fix it. Man.
Yeah.
And your mom's so proud of you.
Yeah, I mean, I wish she was still here, but I know
She
at the end of
sees
the
you.
day, she passed away knowing 100% that I was sober. And she knew I was working at a treatment center. Like, my mom knew that. So to me, that was worth it. You know what I mean? She got to see it.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, a wise man once told me, if you don't deal with your pain, you just transfer it to everybody else. You know what I mean? And we saw that throughout your story, and we really appreciate you, Ciara, being so vulnerable. We're so excited. You know, like I said, Tommy said earlier, people were very much looking forward to having a woman on who's gone through struggles and who's made it out the other side and who's successful and who's helping other people. So you're a great example to all the young women out there, and I mean the men too. But I mean, I think that's really important that we have that on our show, and it's really cool to have that, you know. So hopefully some mothers out there struggling see this and know that it's okay and that there's hope.
And now everybody knows that you, in fact, don't have to be bald to be part of the BKR team. So, all right, that's it for episode 23. Thank you guys for watching.